Okay, is everybody ready? We're going to break into these projectile motion formulas a little bit deeper. The first one we're going to talk about is horizontal displacement. And the formula for that is simply x is equal to v of x times time. And what this is telling me, this becomes x. Because I'm looking for from the time it left to the time it hit the ground. So this x is equal to my horizontal displacement. So what would the v of x represent? Velocity where? No. 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 Do what? No. Okay, look at the variables up here. X tells me horizontal displacement, right? So v of x would tell me velocity in the horizontal direction. Okay? So this would be horizontal velocity. And obviously t is equal to what? Time. Okay. So now let's take it to a different formula and let's talk about vertical displacement. And that vertical displacement is where we calculate out the apex. Where is it? How high is it going to go? So we're looking for that point right there. And the formula that we use for this but I can also, in this situation, since it's obvious, this formula can be written in this form as well. Why can I put gravity in there? Because that is the acceleration, okay? Have we seen this formula before already? Yes, it's nothing except the displacement formula from linear kinematics. So, vertical displacement is my y. And that's telling me that what is its max altitude or what is its apex. That's what I'm calculating when I use this. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. How is time going to be involved in this? Okay, we're looking for the time at the apex. So what would I have to do to the total time in order to have the correct time to calculate the apex? Divided by 2. I'm looking for half of the time. Okay? I'm looking for half time or half of total time, or I'm looking at half of the hang time. Remember we talked about that already? The hang time is the total time it's in the air. So if we're looking for the apex, you've got to remember to take half the time. Don't do the full time. Is everybody good? All right. So now let's talk about horizontal velocity. That formula is v of x is equal to v of I cosine theta So what I'm looking in this situation is I'm looking for this component right here. So to get that, this is where my trig functions are going to come in. Most of the time, it's going to tell me that it was shot at an angle of 30 degrees, and it was going at, let's say, a rate. Remember, resultant vector here is going to be equal to my initial velocity.
At your convenience, could you send Devin Nairn to the attendance office for a second, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So by just simply taking the initial velocity times the cosine of 30, that gives me the horizontal velocity. What does your calculator have to be in order to calculate cosine? Degrees, right. If it's in radians, your calculation will be incorrect and you won't get close to what you need. So make sure before you ever start calculating sine, cosine, or tangent that you switch the mode of your calculator over to degrees. And then when you get through, make sure you switch it back to radians. That way it keeps your answers legit. Okay, so now that's horizontal velocity. So now let's talk about vertical velocity. And the formula to calculate out vertical is v of y is equal to initial velocity times the sine of theta. So what we're looking at here is we're looking for this piece of the puzzle. This becomes my v of y. And I would still use the same information. If I shot it at an angle of 30 and my initial, just for example, was 26, then I would come over here and it's simply just saying 26 times the sine of 30. And whatever answer I get would be my vertical velocity. And then the last part, let's talk about hang time one more time. Again, hang time is just asking how long is it in the air. And the formula for that is time is equal to 2 times v of y times gravity. So I'd have to calculate out the vertical velocity before I figured out how much time it took. Now, this time right here, what is it equal to? Is this half time or total time? This is total time. When I calculate out this, This is total time in the air. So once I get this, before I calculated out the apex, I would have to do what? Divide it by 2. And then use that time to calculate out my apex, or my maximum altitude. So remember, hang time is from the time it leaves the ground to the time it touches the ground. The total time it's in the air.